Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I want to welcome everyone back to YouTube. And before I get started, in my last video, I mentioned how I was able to reach new people. So, on one occasion, someone approached me with a problem. Now, the problem is not the point, and it's something I'm not going to share. But it was a problem that I had to ask God about. And God gave me an answer. And I believe it's an answer worth sharing because it really helped out this individual. And it made me realize how the Lord helped me. The answer helped me see how the Lord is willing to help us. Now, for me personally, the verse that the Lord gave me at that moment, it meant a lot because my life got to the point where everyone gave up on me. It got to the point that even though I wanted to change my life, everyone else was just waiting for me to screw up. And I know how hard it is to admit when we need help, but I want you to know that the Lord is willing. So, with that being said, let's jump into the answer that the Lord gave me. So, the answer that the Lord gave me came through a verse, and that's Matthew chapter 26, verse 41. And normally I read from my Bible app, but my 3-year-old son took off with it. So, I'm going to be reading from my Bible. So, bear with me. So Matthew 26:41 reads, "The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak." Now, okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to break this down. Just how the Lord helped me understand. Now, I want you to remember that I did not figure anything out. God showed me, and I in turn show you. So first, we are going to focus on the flesh is weak. So Jesus knows that the flesh is weak because he says it plainly. Otherwise, why would he say it? Plus, our Bible tells us that Jesus knows what's in our thoughts and in our hearts. So the question is, if the flesh is weak, what is it weak to? So looking back at the beginning of Matthew 26:41, Jesus says, "Watch and pray, lest you enter into temptation. For the spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak." So here we see that Jesus is referring our weakness to temptation. Jesus knows that we are weak to temptation. Otherwise, why would he say to watch out for it? Naturally, we get offended because no one wants to admit they are weak. Some might think, "I'm not weak. I can handle it." For example, when it comes to an addiction, we say, "I can stop anytime I want." Rather than admit we are weak, we lie to others and we lie to ourselves. The devil makes us think that we are in control. But Jesus says the flesh is weak, meaning on our own, we are not strong enough. And in the book of Romans, we see how weak the flesh is. We go to Romans 7. And I'm going to be highlighting verses 15 and 19. "For what I am doing, I do not understand. For what I will to do, that I do not practice." Verse 19. "For the good that I will to do, I do not do. But the evil I will not to do, that I practice." So this verse shows us that we are weak when it comes to doing good, when it comes to doing the right thing. Instead, we give in to the wrong thing, which is temptation. So however we look at it, it's all the same. Temptation, addictions, evil practices, it's all the same thing. So at this point, Jesus knows that we in the flesh are weak. On our own, we are weak. We can't do it on our own. But Jesus said the Spirit is willing. And who is the Spirit? If we go to 1 John chapter 5, verse 7, it's a good thing I have these things marked out. And it reads, "For there are three that bear witness in heaven, the Father, the Word, which is Jesus, and the Holy Spirit. And these three are one." So when Jesus says the Spirit is willing, he is saying that God and himself are willing. Willing to what? What are they willing to do? And that answer is back in Matthew. Matthew chapter 8, verse 2. And it reads, "And behold, a leper came and worshipped him, saying, Lord, if you are willing, you can make me clean. Then Jesus put out his hand and touched him, saying, I am willing." So the leper said, Lord, if you are willing, you can make me clean. If you are willing, you can help me. And back in Romans chapter 7, verse 15, it says, "For what I am doing, I do not understand." So, at most times we don't know what's going on. And we don't know why things are happening. But Jesus says that's okay. Why? Because he knows that we are weak. But in that weakness, Jesus says the Spirit is willing. Jesus says, I am still willing to help you. So for me, I can relate to the leper in Matthew 8:2. Now, our problems, they're not exactly the same. But it still got to the point where I needed help. And it's funny how the world sees us, right? In our problems, in our struggles, the world just gives up on us. And the Bible shows that. If we go to Luke chapter 18, verse 35 to 39. Okay, and it reads, "A certain blind man sat by the road begging, and hearing a multitude passing by, he asked what it meant. So they told him that Jesus of Nazareth was passing by. And he cried out, saying, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. Then those who went before warned him that he should be quiet." So the blind man was asking for help, and the people said, "Be quiet." And that's just one example. So another example is Luke chapter 8, verse 43. It's not too far. All right, and it reads, "Now a woman having a flow of blood for 12 years, who had spent all her livelihood on physicians and could not be healed by any." So here we see that this female spent all her livelihood and could not be helped by anyone. And the last example is not too far. It's also Luke 8, and I'm going to be highlighting verses 41, 42, and 49. And it reads, "A ruler of the synagogue, he fell down at Jesus' feet and begged him to come to his house, for he had an only daughter about 12 years of age, and she was dying." 49, "Someone came from the ruler of the synagogue's house, saying to him, Your daughter is dead. Do not trouble the teacher." So again, this example shows how the world sees us. It sees those who are struggling with their problems as though they are already dead. And that's how the world sees people, in their problems, in their struggles. So to recap, the woman with the issue of blood, she spent all her livelihood and no one could help her. The blind man that was calling out to Jesus, the world told him to be quiet. And then the 12-year-old girl who was dying, the world said she is already dead. Do not bother Jesus. So in the midst of our weakness, the world says to be quiet. The world says to pay up first. Looks at our situation and says it's too late. The world gives up on us. But Jesus says, I am willing. Jesus says, even though you are weak, even though you mess up from time to time, even though people giving up on you and see you as already dead, remember, Jesus says, I am willing. Now some people might say, so if Jesus knows and is willing, then where is he? Back in Matthew 26:41, It says, watch and pray. And pray for what? To pray for help. Pray is another word for ask. So just ask because He is willing to help. So now we know that Jesus is willing to help. The question now is, are you willing to ask? Thanks for watching.